Welcome back to the Childhood Cancer Perspective, and thank you all once again for sticking with me as I go through these episodes detailing the life and journey of our daughter JC, who was diagnosed with a rare form of brain cancer at the young age of 6, January 30th of 2020. Seeing it from a parent's perspective, but also from our other daughters, so a sibling's perspective, and now speaking to the community as well and their own impacts from their children, but also their impacts as advocates on this world of pediatric cancer. So a lot of people that I meet going through this world are honestly, I'm internet searching, I'm Instagram searching, I'm finding people that are having the gold ribbon in their bios and have their platforms for the same thing. And I want to collaborate and I want to speak to them. And so my next guest is someone that I met, I believe, through Instagram and through the searching of trying to find others that are either fighting the same battle or are advocating for the same thing that we are. So I'd like to introduce Lori Williams, and I'm going to try to name off just a few accolades. You let me know if I missed any of them. But mother of a warrior, a wife, an advocate, a dance instructor, an author, a visionary of the year. And, please just, tell us about yourself and then we'll just have a conversation about this world and how it's impacted all of us.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I like to have a lot of irons in the fire at one time. I function best when I'm juggling a lot of things. So thanks for mentioning some of those. I have been an advocate for about 3 years now. My oldest child, Thomas, was diagnosed with a rare form of leukemia at the age of 2. And ever since then, my eyes have just been opened wide to all of the injustices when it comes to childhood cancer research funding, to the harsh treatments that affect children in so many negative ways, even if they do save their lives, and just the need for support of cancer families, as well as the need for blood donation and treatment of cancers. So I have been a strong advocate with Versity Blood Center of Wisconsin. I did a Royal Ball fundraiser for St. Baldrick's Foundation. I have a lot of different events that I've done over the years, and we can talk about those later if you want. But yes, I'm very involved in the advocacy realm, and I do it all with my kids and my husband by my side.
Excellent. So tell us about Thomas, about how the diagnosis came about and really how it's maybe an obvious question to some people, but how it's really impacted your life on the personal side and then on the advocacy moving forward.
So I'm going to backtrack to 2012 because Thomas was not my first experience with cancer in my family. My cousin's son, Trayden, actually it was 2011, was diagnosed with ALL as a baby. He was a couple months old, just tiny baby, and he fought and he tragically passed right before his first birthday. And that was obviously extremely difficult for everyone and just so heartbreaking. Later, about a year later, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she had a double mastectomy only to have it come back. And she had to fight all over again. Thankfully, she's 12 years past that. She's been really strong and healthy. Then in 2020, Trayden's older sibling, Axton, was diagnosed with leukemia. So 2 leukemia diagnoses in the same family. And they said that there was no genetic component. It just happened. I think there's more research that needs to be done because it's odd that myself and my cousin, there's 3 diagnoses in the same family. So that was my experience with cancer, and my heart was very invested in this and also very traumatized by cancer. So fast forward to 2020 for my family, and my daughter was born in December of 2020. So Thomas was about a year and a half. All of our kids are less than 2 years apart because, why not? Crazy train. And so we had 2 under 2, and we were adjusting to life as a family of 4. And Thomas loved having a little sister. Of course, there were, the few challenges of learning how to be with a sibling. And for him, it wasn't the jealousy so much as, we don't wrestle with the baby. We don't hit her with heavy toys when we're playing rough, like that kind of stuff. But anyway, loved being a big brother. We were just really getting into the groove of being a family of 4. And when Verna was 3 months old, Thomas celebrated his second birthday. But he had been kind of sick and lethargic that whole week. He had run a couple fevers. He has always been an active kid. I mean, he rolled over the second day he was born. He rolled on his side in his bassinet at the hospital. Strong, active kid. And for him to just be tired and not want to run around and not play at the park was odd. He had his 2-year checkup with his pediatrician, and she noticed some bruising on his face. And he had bruising other areas on his body. Like I said, very active kid, always jumping around, climbing, always getting little bumps and bruises just from daily life. But she said, the facial bruising is a little concerning. She didn't want to scare me, but she said, just to be proactive, I want you to go and get some blood work done. So we went that day to the lab. They did the blood draw, and I came. You mentioned I'm a dance teacher. I was at the dance studio teaching my classes that evening, and all of a sudden the office assistant came to me and said, you need to come to the phone. Your husband's on the phone, which was odd because he never calls me when I'm at work, and I just had a horrible, horrible feeling. I'd had a horrible feeling all day. And he said, we have to go to Children's. They found some abnormalities in Thomas's blood work. It looks like it could be leukemia. So you have never seen a mom fly so fast out the door and rush home. And we packed up Thomas. We packed up our 3-month-old. We went right to Children's. They admitted us through the ER that night. We were told that he did have leukemia. And we started a 7-month course of treatment. We were inpatient for 7 months while Thomas fought this. And that was very challenging in a lot of ways. But to get back to his diagnosis, he had a form of leukemia called, it's AML, but it's a very specific AMKL, acute megakaryoblast leukemia. And when they did his CHOP analysis, so for people who might be new, do you remember what CHOP stands for? I can't think of it off the top of my head. It's when they send your genetic, or they do your genetic profiling out at a big institute on the East Coast and break everything down and how the specific cancers are going to affect your patient based on their genetics. And that's another thing I didn't realize, is that cancer is not just, okay, you have cancer, this is how we treat it. Cancer is unique to each patient and their specific genetics. And the treatments that might work for one patient with the same exact cancer might not work for another. So we found out that Thomas's cancer was very prevalent in Down syndrome populations. So one of the first things that they did was notice that there were some trisomy 21 in his genes, and we had never seen any symptoms. So then they're like, okay, is it mosaic Down syndrome, which is a different form? We had genetics people coming, and I'll never forget, he was sitting on my lap. He's like 2 years old watching Curious George, and they're just like looking at his hands, poking and prodding. They had to do a skin sample, which was really, really difficult to watch your kid have to, get a piece of skin scraped off, and they're 2 and they don't understand, and it hurts. And anyway, what they found out was that his cancer cells basically were the trisomy. They had the Down syndrome genes, which was never, this was a case they had never ever seen before. And the really wild thing is that worked in his favor because leukemia is so prevalent in Down syndrome populations that the treatments tend to work better. So his very specific, kind of crazy genetic case worked to his advantage during his course of treatment. He had no evidence of disease after his first round of chemo, but because AML is so aggressive, we had to do 5 more rounds of chemo after that, which were all about a month inpatient every time. So that's his diagnosis story.
And honestly, I sit here and listen, and I look back and I say, I feel like we're looking into a mirror. Like, it was, for us, it was months and months of trying to figure out what was going on with JC. And then while I'm picking up dinner one night on our daughter's birthday, our oldest daughter's birthday, I get the text from my wife saying, I just got the call from the pediatrician. We have to go to Children's now. And
Ugh.
because the news is not good, this is what it is. At that point, we still don't have a diagnosis. There's swelling of the optic nerve. We have to go. In the middle of the night, we're rushing to Children's. We have to go to the ER. We sit there for hours. We get admitted. We do a CT. They see there's a mass. We're admitted to the hospital instantly. And we're there for 2 weeks. It's like, and the same thing with I have noticed with our daughter's type of cancer, it's a very rare form of brain cancer that most people have never heard of. And the protocol is just not there. There's nothing. And any person we've ever met that's had the same type of diagnosis, the protocol is different. So it's, that genetic component of it is very important. Now, you look at it and think, and of course they wanted to test my wife and I for genetic predispositions. And to be honest with you, in the beginning, we're like, no, because I don't want it to say that I brought it or that you brought it. And then it brings, then it's like, you don't say that you harbor any resentment, but at the same time, you know what I mean? So we were very, very hesitant. And they said, no, if we find genetic predispositions, I'm not going to say where it came from. It's whatever. It's very much a similar type of situation to see that. And then trying to figure out what's going on. And they're so young and not understanding why they don't feel good and not understanding why all these things are happening to them. All the testing, the IVs, it's just, and as a parent, your one job is to protect your children. And unfortunately, in this situation, to make them better, you have to allow pain to happen in order to attempt to fix it. So I see a lot of the same in what you went through and what our kids went through. And it is a very, very sad part of this world and this community that I think people need to understand, that what these kids go through and what the families go through is not a commercial. And I think we can all figure out what commercials I'm talking about. And it's no resentment or no hard feelings, but it's to me, that's the marketing that proves that we need to fight harder so that the realities are shown.
Yes, absolutely. And along that same vein, I think it's important to talk about some of that because even myself, having so much experience in my own family with cancer, you can't truly grasp what it's like until you're in that situation. So it's very traumatizing, like you said, not only for the child, but for the parent. It's things like having a central port and having to have those dressing changes and your 2-year-old just screaming because he's having to get this sticker ripped off and it's painful, or getting pokes all the time, or being nauseous from the medication. And I still like the eye drops. I don't know if JC had to do these, but he had to do these eye drops twice a day to prevent conjunctivitis. And the nurses told me, these hurt. They're going to sting. It's going to be difficult. And so you carry that trauma with you and you work through it, but you all of a sudden will be somewhere and you have a trigger. Like my kids, I was telling you, 2 out of 3 of them got pink eye this week. And the doctor's like, okay, we're going to have to do these eye drops. And immediately, like, my chest just tensed up and I felt, that tightness in my throat. And I'm like, what is going on? Oh, because I remember having to do this with Thomas. So it's not just the fight and watching them go through the cancer. It's all of those other things too that can affect you for life.
Right. This is, it's not only a family diagnosis in a sense, it is a lifelong diagnosis. Obviously, I have 2 older daughters, and every time one of them gets any type of a headache or anything like that, my wife is quicker to jump to assume the worst. And I am trying to build that wall and say, you can't do that. You have to in the back of your mind, unfortunately, you're conditioned now to think, what could it be this bad? Could it be something along these lines? Do we need to address it more? But at the same time, you can't. You have to try not to put yourself through that kind of trauma every single time. But it's hard. You know what I mean? It's very difficult to do that. But at the same time, going through this now and having a child with this, a bruise is not a bruise anymore. A headache's not a headache anymore. A cold is not a cold anymore. It's so much more. And we're trying to treat everything. And, I will throw out a statistic early and saying that when we go to DC every year, they are quick to tell you how amazing they are now at 80% cure rates for these kids. 80%. That's fine. That's great. But what about the 95% of the side effect issues and the 95% recurrence rates and all that come into play because of how bad and hard these treatments are. These, to watch your child go through chemotherapy and have nurses come in looking like it's like day X, dressed up,
Yeah.
and then telling you that you don't touch any body fluids. If they sweat, don't touch it. You could burn your skin. It's going through their body. To be honest with you, I could care less if it burns me. That I never cared about that. It was, when JC was in for her bone marrow, she was on thiotepa. Thiotepa is the only chemo drug that excretes through your pores. So you have to take a bath every couple of hours, otherwise it will burn the skin. But what is it doing to the insides of their bodies? There has to be a better way to treat these kids. There just has to.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's all those horrible side effects too. I remember like Thomas was still in diapers and they were like, you have to wear gloves every time you change his diaper because of the chemo and the harmful components. And that's exactly what you think as a parent. Like it's just heartbreaking to know that it is doing all of that to their little tiny bodies and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I think that's part of what, unfortunately, I've always said that, we don't want people to understand per se how we feel. We just want you to listen and realize there's so much more that goes into this than
Yes.
the smiling kids you see on TV. Those moments can be very few and far between.
Yes.
They are going through hell on earth. Now, I will say this, these children, I may be a little bit biased of my own, but they are the most incredible, genuine people that will smile through the worst days
Absolutely.
and make you smile through the worst and tell you, we want to make sure you're okay, Mom. We want to make sure you're okay, Dad. How are you doing? Not caring about that is, and I will forever say this, the genuine hearts that we need more of in this world and that we are losing because there's not enough research, there's not enough money, there's not enough eyes on this, not enough people that care. And unfortunately, unless it affects you personally, especially in the government world, then not a lot of people care. And that's something that we have got to change.
I agree. And that is the main reason I became involved in advocacy. I never was a public speaker or anything along those lines, but I found these opportunities coming more and more, and just simply sharing your story can make such a huge impact. I never realized, for example, that blood donation is such a huge part of cancer treatment, especially for blood cancers like leukemia. And since I became involved in that realm, I know at least a dozen people now who are active blood donors. So they're making a difference because I simply shared my story. So that's a really key component in making the change that we want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It's being, when for us, the advocacy really started, unfortunately, after JC passed. We realized that this was not okay. What we went through, what she went through, this was not a good, positive outcome, obviously, and this was not what we wanted to see for the future. So it was time for us to stand up and say, we're going to do something about it, or we're at least going to try. Until my last dying breath, I will be on this platform, on this hill, until something changes in the positive, because they deserve it. JC deserved it. Thomas deserves it. They all deserve it to have their voices heard when they're too young to speak for themselves. And that's why we're here. So I am thrilled to be able to collaborate with others that have the same passion that I do and are willing to talk until we're blue in the face and until people tell us to just shut up, and then we talk a little bit longer because we have to. We have
Exactly.
to. So you also, during going through all these treatments, you mentioned that you wrote a book.
I did. I have always loved writing. I knew I always wanted to write a book. And when I was in my early 20s, let me back up and say that I was adopted as a baby. My parents could not have children of their own. And I was adopted. I had a great life. But I always had that curiosity about my birth family and where I came from. So in my 20s, I reconnected with my biological family. And I wanted to share that experience with others because my mission has always been to help people in any way I can. I'm a nurturer, I'm an empath, I want to do good in the world. So I just wanted, same thing, I wanted to share my story to show other people that you can merge your two worlds, if you will, or if you're a person considering adoption, or if you're an adoptive parent who wants to hear from the adoptee side. And I've had a really, really positive experience. My parents were very young, my birth parents, so they didn't stay together, but I have great relationships with both of their families. And when Thomas was sick, everybody came together. I mean, people that hadn't really interacted in years all came together to support us. My biological mother planned a huge, like, astronomical benefit for us. She had like all of central Wisconsin at this thing for Thomas Strong is what we called it. And my half sisters were working the raffles, and my biological dad was doing the parking, and my birth mom was in charge of everything. And that was really a positive that came out of this. And I wanted to share that through my book. And I also did it to keep my sanity because we were in the hospital, like I said, 7 months. And I would be there day in and day out. My husband owns a business, a tree service. So we are like nonstop in the summer and the spring months. And Thomas was diagnosed April 6th. So we're heading into the busy season. We rely on that business for our main income. My husband runs the entire show. So he would be out working his regular summer hours of like 12 to 14 hours a day. I'm not kidding you. And then he would run home, see our baby for a few minutes, and then come to the hospital. So I needed something outside of being a caregiver and a mom, which being a mom is my biggest blessing in my life. But to keep my mind going, to keep my mind from going to those dark places, to keep my sanity. And I just churned it out. And a couple months after Thomas was released, I self-published. So my book is called Rooted, like a tree, like a family tree. And I've been able to share my story through that. And my main message is that I wrote it down so I can say it perfectly. Harnessing your personal pain and turning it into your life's purpose. That's my overall message. Looking for the good, even though you are existing in the bad. And that's not to say you need that toxic positivity, like, it's all fine, it's all good. Like, no. It's to say that you can find purpose in the pieces of what has shattered in your life.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing. And I made a video, I think, on TikTok maybe like a year ago, and it was honestly, the title of the video was Find Your Purpose. And it was honestly to kind of tell people, like, whatever you're going through, no matter what it is, find your purpose in life and run with it. Even if it's, born of tragedy or born of something bad or whatever, do that. So it's an amazing message to give to people based on that personal story. And personal stories to me are much more impactful than just fiction. I love to be able to see the personal side of it and attach it to something, because you're going to connect with that group of people that may feel left out because they don't have a personal guidance or story. So that's awesome. And I can certainly attest to trying to keep sanity when for the first initial hospital stay, we were there for 2 weeks, but my wife and I were there together with JC. We were apart from our other two kids, which was terrible, but when we were able to go back home, it was great. But I was in with her for her bone marrow. We were there for, in addition, 52 days, and I was there just me and her. And although I loved her company and she loved mine, it was being away from everybody else. It is hard not to, to really get lost in your thoughts and just be lonely in general and not know what to do to find that. So the fact that you found purpose in all of that, no pun intended, but we're able to create something that's amazing.
Thank you. It's also like the families. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Like the families you meet too. So I'm, like I said, a huge empath, and like I can relate to everyone in some way. And my heart goes out whenever anyone is going through something. So to walk those halls and see those families and all that they're going through, and you don't necessarily know their diagnosis, but it's not good that they're there. So that's another piece of it too. It was like, you're not only worried, if you're like me, my husband always tells me I need to stay in my own lane a little bit more, but like, you're not only worried for your kid, but now you have a relationship with this other family and your kids are friends, and like, how do you explain to your child that their friend isn't here anymore? Like, it's
Yeah.
very, very difficult in a lot of ways. So you have to find something to keep your mind, if you're anything like me, to keep your mind occupied on other things.
Yeah. No,
Mhm.
it makes a lot of sense, honestly. And, being in that part of Milwaukee at Children's, being in the hot unit during her bone marrow and being in that off, you're basically cordoned off in this area.
Yes,
But a lot of your friends are the parents, and a lot of the children's friends are the other kids that are going through this. And, unfortunately, a lot of those children don't make it. And so a lot of our kids are not only they're losing friends, and it is at a young age. How do you explain that to them? How do you, you know, how do you make them understand that without scaring them into believing that
right.
that's going to be their future as well? That's
Exactly.
huge. After Jace passed, we had a very, very well, they're very close friends of ours, and their daughter passed this just in August here, and they were tight knit. They were yin and yang. They were the closest of friends, same birthday, everything,
Oh
and
my
we
God.
instantly connected through the hospital.
Hmm.
When we were in Green Bay, our social worker got us together, and we've been attached to the hip ever since. And it was, again, trying to explain that, or trying to, being around everybody, and having their other kids try to understand, why did this happen? And then their siblings, is this going to happen to my sister? It's a lot of conversations that we as parents or even adults should not be having. Um,
Exactly.
so but it's also that reality, and those stories. Those are the ones that need to be shared on TV. Those are the ones that need to be in the news. I love the success stories. I do. I appreciate and love the fact all these kids that are growing up and doing great things and becoming advocates themselves at young ages.
Yes.
But it's unfortunately these stories of reality that we see on a daily basis, is what is kind of the point of this podcast and everything else, is that to see that inside that not a lot of people see, or that we're kind of silenced per se on. They don't like, social media doesn't like it when I share these stories. TikTok and one, I'll tell you right now, they don't like it. A lot of stuff is getting pulled down because it's too whatever, it's too real. So this is that freedom that I have.
And isn't that interesting? Because our media, just the mass media in general, is so focused on the negativity. Like,
Hmm.
it's rare to see an extremely positive story.
Yeah.
So if you're already focused on the negative, why wouldn't you just allow people to focus on the negative for good,
Right.
to show people what exists and to change
Yeah.
the
No.
reality of it?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, the stories that we've been able to get onto TV have been me reaching out to reporters and to news stations, and a lot of it is, I've got to run this through my newsroom, and I'll never hear from them again.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I mean, some of the stuff that's out there, or when I see things on social media about things that our governor or bills that he's signing, it's not a political side of it. It's just whether I agree with it or not, or think it's a waste of time. I think you spent all this time on this, but I've been begging you to talk to me and to listen to what I've got to say, and nothing. Um,
Yeah.
and so I often wonder, I mean, yeah, there's times I wonder, is it all worth it? And then I look back, at our daughter's pictures that are everywhere, and say it absolutely is, because there's no force great enough on this earth that is going to stop what we're trying to do and what we will do.
100%. And that leads me into another topic. So I think every parent has those thoughts, but especially when you have such a clearly defined mission and you can feel discouraged. But I was recently nominated for Leukemia Lymphoma Society Visionary of the Year, which I know your previous guest had also done that campaign, but as a student. So that is a 10-week philanthropic competition, is what they call it. And the nominees are people in the community who have been recognized for their advocacy in the cancer realm. Specifically, the LLS focuses on blood cancers, which is what Thomas had. But the very exciting thing is that this is the first year that they have a dedicated childhood cancer research as part of this. It's called the Dare to Dream Project, and they are specifically focusing on AML, which is super exciting because that is one of the more deadly leukemias. It is the most deadly leukemia. AML is a much worse diagnosis than ALL. We could get into all the genetics and how that factors in and stuff, but to speak on that personally, I only know one other family out of about a dozen that we know where the child had AML and is still in remission and here today. So that's just my personal experience. And I was honored to take this nomination. I'm hitting it really hard at trying to meet my goal is $50,000, which is a lot of money, but I totally think we can do it. We have 4 weeks left. This is the beginning of week 6, and this runs through June 8th. So at the moment, I'm looking for corporate sponsorships. If there are any businesses that want to contribute, they can buy an ad page in the program for $1,200. That's my little plug. But any amount is helpful. Because when you say, like, well, is it worth it? Even if somebody donates $25, LLS not only does research and patient education, but they support families going through this. And that's another side you might not think about as much. It's not just the cost of treatment and medical, it's the cost of, like in my case, we lost a lot of income that summer because my husband had to balance running a business and being at the hospital. We had other financial things that came up that we couldn't just be like, okay, we're not going to pay our mortgage or whatever. So I'm rambling because that's what I do. But that $25 could be, part of a tank of gas for a family that has to drive to and from treatment, or just anything to help families. Any amount makes a difference. So I encourage people to check out my campaign. Lori Williams is my name. You can check me out on social media, or if you just Google Visionary of the Year, Lori Williams, it should come up.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. So if anybody is listening and wants to check that out, please do. Everything that you do, big or small, helps in some way. And if enough people, even if they're small donations, enough people coming together make a massive difference. And I think we're fighting the same battle with that, with our fundraising efforts too. And it's a lot of people think, well, I don't have much. I'm so much bigger on, obviously the money is great. It goes towards a great thing, but just share what we're doing. Get enough people to listen to what we're saying, because the right person comes along that there's people that are looking to make donations to things. And it's a feel good. It's good karma points. Okay. That counts. You can get good karma points.
I agree.
You're making a difference in not only a child's life, or you're making a difference in a family's life. And it's, like I said in the beginning, it is a family diagnosis, and it affects so many more than just the patient. It does. And it's something that we have to focus on as a whole. So let's get that campaign up there, and let's make that impact.
Thank you. Can I talk about 2 other pieces that are campaigns / part of my advocacy?
Please do.
So there is a company called Headbands of Hope. It was started by a lady named Jess Ekstrom when she was 19 and in college, and she had to come up with a company for a business class. She started it out of her dorm room, and now it's a multi-million-dollar company, and they have all sorts of hats, headbands, hair ties, anything you can put on your head. And her mission was to help families affected by childhood cancer. And now every purchase from her business, it's like Love Your Melon, where they donate an item to a kid fighting illness. So that was very exciting to me to learn about that company. I'm also an ambassador for them, so I can send you, if you have show notes, my link. But that's another piece of my fundraising, is all of my proceeds from that are going to go to my LLS campaign. And just as a mom, this is just a unsolicited plug, but I never have time to get ready. So a headband is like my go-to. Like today I got to shower, but did I get to dry my hair? No, now I look put together because I have a headband in. It's like my magic trick. So that's my plug to busy people everywhere. Okay, backtrack. Okay. Another thing that I'm doing, which seems kind of goofy, but it's also a fundraiser for childhood cancer research for the Andrew McDonough Be Positive Foundation. They fund childhood cancer research and helping families affected by cancer, spreading positivity, helping families financially. They've actually funded a few childhood cancer research grants. So I'm in this competition for hers, which is a fitness magazine, and it's for Miss Health and Fitness. So if I get the most votes out of all of the contestants, then I get this title, but it will give me another platform to share my advocacy, and I win $20,000. So I would definitely be donating some of that to my cause. So that's my plug for that. Look it up, Miss Health and Fitness 2024. Lori Williams. You can vote for free every day. It literally takes 2 seconds. But if you're so compelled to do the paid votes, that all goes to the Andrew McDonough Foundation to help fight childhood cancer.
Awesome. Awesome. And I believe those links are all in your Instagram, right?
Yep, they're all on my Instagram. So if you look me up, my Instagram name is Cancer Fighting Dancing Queen.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so that's on there. I looked at those. So yeah, definitely anybody just, check it out. And if nothing else, just share it and, let's get more eyes and ears on this. And that brings in the people that want to make the donations and want to make the difference. And we're all about the community coming together. That's the whole point of this. And the more of us that are fighting together, the greater the impact that we're going to be able to make.
Absolutely.
So that's awesome. So I have a very serious question for you now. Okay. There is something in this, whether it's the cancer world in general, or I know it specifically to the pediatric cancer world, and it's the 80-20 rule. And going through this, 80% of couples will break up, not because of, certain things that people that would break a couple up, but because the stress is incredible. And it causes things to kind of break apart. And my wife and I did an episode on this where we talked about it. And the answer is very difficult because it's not very defined. So my question then would be, why do you believe that you were part of the 20%?
Woof. I always say that time was like a separation, an involuntary separation for us. My husband was there full time on the weekends. I was there full time Monday through Friday. We saw each other for maybe an hour a day if we were lucky, and not even every day. Throw in having practically a newborn, a 3-month-old baby that we're trying to still have a relationship with. It was incredibly stressful. And I'm not going to say too much because my husband he's super private, but like I will just say it was majorly stressful. We definitely fought more in the times that we were home than we ever had because it was just so hard on our relationship and trying to become a family of 4. And then once we were out, I talk about it like we were in prison because in some ways it was like that. You felt like
Yeah.
you were. I don't want to like diss the hospital. It's an amazing place, amazing staff, but when you're there for so long, you feel trapped. So once we were out, we had to figure out our relationship all over again. How do we communicate? How do we take care of 2 children? Because at that point, we both were really only used to caring for 1 child. And how do we merge our family back together as a unit? And I think it was really having the core values. And I say that just about marriage in general. Like, people think that marriage and relationships are like, oh, it's Disney and you meet the perfect person and you fall in love and it's all sunshine and rainbows and happily ever after. No, it's not. There are days that are like that. There are many days that are like that when you're in a good partnership. However, you have to be willing to do the work, admit your own faults, and you have to be on the same page with your values, your core values. And that is something we talked about a lot before we even got engaged, that we wanted the same things out of life. We had the same, just morals and core values. And that's what saw us through. And faith is a big aspect for us, our faith in God. And it really, really bolstered that, especially for my husband. And that's one thing I'm really grateful for through that experience.
That's perfect. I think that, so now it's like you've had, the worst thing in the world thrown at you. What the hell else can the world do? You have made it through, you have made it through and come out.
I'm not scared of anything, really.
Yeah, it's an experience. I mean, honestly, I know, it was the same for us. I think I didn't notice it as much, but when we talk about it, I go back and look, and yeah, we did argue more, we did fight more. And to be honest, that's another subject to come up, is that JC was one of those kids, and I know a lot of them do it. They feel like what you're going through on the negative side, your mom and dad are fighting, they feel like it's their fault. And she would always apologize. She'd say, "I'm sorry. I mean, you guys are mad because of me. You're tired because of me. You're this." And it's like, none of that matters. We're here for you. And yes, we're fighting, we're arguing, whatever. We're here for you 100%. None of this is your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. I remember the first time she pulled her NG tube out, she was nothing but apologetic to the nurses, and you didn't do anything wrong, honey. It's okay. It's just relax, but it's just a reality that the stress and the lack of sleep and everything you're going through, you sometimes take it out on each other, and it's not something that it can be a detriment. Like I said, 80% of people don't make it through this. They realize that it's just too much, it's too stressful, but at the same time, maybe that just shows that they're just not meant for high stress situations. And that is the highest of stress situations, but life is tough and it's hard. And this is, we joke with my girls and we say that the key to a good marriage is tolerance, we just tolerate, but we're coming up on 20 years next month.
Wow.
And
Congrats.
thank you. And it's been a ride, and we've had ups and downs, and this is by far the hardest thing we've ever had to go through in our entire life. But I look at it like there's nothing else you can throw at me or throw at us that is going to slow us down if we've made it through this.
And yeah, we're on the same page.
So yeah, it was definitely it was a test, and I don't know that we 100% passed, and maybe we're not ever going to be 100% on point with where we need to be, but we're definitely fighting in a fighting couple. For me, it was a dead set. My parents divorced when I was 6. I said, I am never letting that happen ever in life. There is not a chance. I find the one, we're together, we have a family, that's what it's going to be. And so that's always been my driving force behind it. And I've asked my wife before, did you ever think during this battle that we were going to break up? And to my surprise, she said yes. She goes, I thought there were times when it was bad enough. And that scares me even more. But, it's the reality. It really is that, when I say 80-20, it's a serious thing. And 20% is a really low number of people that, I don't want to say stick it out, but are just able to come out on the other side of the fire.
Yeah, it's definitely a refining process for your relationship. And we're lucky in that our child is in remission, and he had, I hate when people use this term, the good cancer, as if that's such a thing.
I wrote that down right here. I was going to ask you if you've heard that. Yeah.
Oh my God, yes. And like people would be commenting like, oh, so this is the good cancer. What is that? Like, where did that come from? How is that a thing? But that's one thing I say is like, we're lucky. But why should any parent have to say lucky when it's like, oh, don't worry, my child just had cancer, but he's fine now? Like, it's not, yeah. I don't know where I was going with that, but
I don't understand that phrase. I do not. And I just don't like first of all, if it's a good one, then why is it still around? Why can't we get rid of it? Why are kids dying from it? Why are adults, like, if it's so good, then okay. Honestly, the amount of ignorance that I've run into in the past few years is just incredible. People that believe they know everything or believe they know what the internet has told them, and then they're, oh well, it's, it's the good one. That's not too bad. They'll be okay. All right. Well, I've seen some bad things, and I'm sure you've seen some bad things, and I have pictures and images I tell people on my phone of everything that we went through, that I could probably bring the biggest, strongest man to their knees to show them. And that's the kind of stuff I can't share because it's too gruesome. It's too whatever. It's too real. But show me the good one, because I'd like to see what the good cancer looks like, because I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard about it.
Right.
I don't,
And
I don't.
another thing that, like, I'm thankful for, it's one of those dual, two sides of the coin existing at the same time, is like, people are always like, well, thank goodness he was so young when it happened. He won't really remember and he won't be as traumatized, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, okay, but like, are you hearing what you're saying right now? But given that, yes, if it had to happen, it was a good time. I don't want to say that, but like, he doesn't remember. When you ask him about the hospital, he remembers like the fish tank in the
Mhm.
lobby. He does remember the pokes though, and he gets a lot of anxiety surrounding that. And every time we go to even a checkup, like a regular checkup, he's like, do I have to get a poke? And it's really hard for him. But more of the difficulties of the treatment, like the nausea and the pain and the rashes and the dressing changes, he doesn't remember that part.
That's extremely positive. I guess if you have to
Mm-hmm.
find a silver lining, because those dressings that go over the port, they should be used to hold planes together. Is- and
Yeah,
they,
for real.
yeah, it's incredible. And I've never seen it. Like my wife took her to the hospital or to her like radiation treatments to be accessed for the first couple of times. And the first time I took her, I almost said never again, because for them to take that off and to see how much pain they're in trying to get that removed, and slowly and methodically for them to try to get it off, and to see what it just tears the skin apart.
Yeah.
And then to see her put to sleep for the first time so she could have a radiation, and they didn't warn me, and she's just sitting straight up on her iPad, and they put this propofol in, and she just falls backwards, and they looked at
Oh
me and they
my
said, we
God.
probably should have warned you. I said, yeah, that'd have been
No
great.
kidding.
Like
Yeah.
that. That's scary to see, your kid going through any of this stuff. And I had seen her
Yeah.
put to sleep, for her CTs and MRIs and stuff like that. And it was no big deal. But for her to be sitting there and then all of a sudden just like fall over and be limp, it's, I think that, I just think that the doctors and nurses, I don't think it's a negative thing on them. I just think you become kind of complacent with it and just don't assume that it's that bad because you see it every day. But
Right.
just, to have us come in and see those types of things, and again, that's a reality. Like that's what people need to hear, unfortunately. I mean, I don't want you to see it, but maybe you need to see it. Maybe you need to see the hard stuff so you know that this is bad. This is a problem. This is, even if you're raising the funding like they told us last year to 8%, that still sucks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what are we even doing? And most of the research that you get for adult cancers, which I'm going to say adult and children, the cancers are different, guys. They are
Yep.
100% different. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The good cancer in a kid and the good cancer in an adult, they react different. Okay.
Yeah.
You choose which one is the good one, but they react
Yeah.
different, okay. Then the treatments are different. And what you just, you have to find a way to get the eyes and ears on all of this and make it a positive change. I just cannot continue to go about my day every single day and see this problem continue and continue and continue, and have people continually say, will they get enough? Will they get enough? And
Yep.
they're kids. And again, they're young, right? They'll bounce back. They'll bounce back. Well, yeah, they might bounce back from a skin knee or, from a fall off the top bunk. Okay. They may bounce back from that. This is not bounce back material. This cancer is not, you just get it and walk away from it. Okay. This is a hard fight. It's a hard battle. It's not the same thing.
I want to take a little bit of a turn from that and ask you and also share my experience. I think most people, even if they're not super receptive, they wouldn't be negative towards someone promoting childhood cancer research because their child has been affected by it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever run into anybody who is negative or even bullying towards you, saying that you're trying to be a sob story or that you're trying to play the victim? Because recently, I just want to share my experience in vague terms, and it's very disheartening and appalling. I joined an organization and I earned an award. They later took away said award based on scoring errors, and we could get into all sorts of convoluted things with that. I waited. I didn't say anything about the situation. And then after some private conversations with this organization, I shared my story publicly in very generic terms, just explaining what happened. And the backlash from that was insane. I talked about the fact that I worked for this award because it would shine a light on my cancer advocacy. I entered this program with the main goal of elevating my work as a childhood cancer advocate. The really significant thing that made me want to enter this program is the fact that the event where I competed was held on my son's diagnosis anniversary. So to me, that was a huge sign. I need to do this. So I did it. I won this award. I was celebrating with my family. I was just hugging my son on stage saying, thank you, God that he's here. And 3 years ago, we were sitting in a hospital fighting cancer. So I share my story very generically, First Amendment rights. I'm allowed to share what happened, and I link it all to the work that I'm doing for my son and for kids like JC and every other child and family that is affected. And I close with saying my work is not going to stop, and I didn't need this award to do my work. Like I said, the backlash was absurd. People that are loyal to this particular organization were bullying, horrible. It's kind of comical how horrible they were. Someone was like, you play the victim so well, you should carry around your own body chalk. Someone said that to me. And I'm like, has anyone else ever encountered this when they're trying to do good work in the world? It is insane that someone could act like that to me, and that this particular organization is not only giving them repercussions, but actively supporting this person and promoting them as an advocate for their organization.
So I haven't personally dealt with anything that extreme, but what I will say is that it is incredible what organizations will go through to protect themselves
Yes.
versus the people that represent them. And that
Yes.
the representatives are often, unfortunately, just a number, and you're there for clout. And as soon as you didn't really tarnish it. You did. I don't really see. I'm waiting for the negative side of what you did, but you tarnished their image, right?
I told the truth, which they didn't want to tell.
No, and that's not okay. You have to tell, and there's a difference, right? There's the truth and there's their truth, or there's your, and they have their own set of what they wanted, the values or whatever you want to call it to be, and you did not align with that. And so therefore, unfortunately, it's not like, let's just have a clean break and walk away. Okay. We don't align, so let's just walk away. No, we have to destroy your character, and we have to push back in such a negative way. And it, honestly, I want, when I hear the story and stuff, I just want to get up and throw the camera across the room. I really do, because it's just so frustrating.
Yeah.
Because there are so many, it doesn't matter what you really are advocating for, unless it is something horrible. And I mean, like, negative against just the world. You're advocating for the life of your child and for the life of so many others, and for a battle that we fight every day, a lot of times in the dark and without people listening to us. And you have a platform, use it. Isn't that what celebrities do? And most of their words are crap. Most of the things they stand for are garbage. They're using their platform that they've built or that they've bought into to share whatever they're doing or advocate for their cause. That's what it is. And whether or not you use that stepping platform or stepping stone to get to that platform, doesn't matter how you got there. You won fair and square. You had a platform. What is the problem? I don't understand. Like I said, because there were so many people that I have found and reached out to that had that similar type of platform in that similar type of industry, that are using that platform for the exact same thing. So now it becomes, is it just personal?
I'm certain it is, and I can't get into that, but that's a whole other topic for another day.
It really is a sad state of affairs, honestly, because no matter what the platform is we have, whether it's big or small, we should be able to speak about what we want to speak about, and we all have a hill to die on. And this is mine.
Mine too.
And so we're going to be up here fighting. And the thing is to be honest with you, like I said, social media doesn't like it when I share the real stories. They don't like it when I share a lot of the stuff, pictures, images. They don't push it. They don't promote it because it doesn't make them any money. Let's be honest, it's not fun to look at. It's not a fun topic. And to be honest, when it comes to, sick children, a lot of people are on the mindset that if you close your eyes and turn your back, it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
And that's the way we treat it. I mean, let's be in the simplest form. How many of us growing up as kids went to the hospital, you broke your ankle, your leg, you sprained something, whatever, but you didn't know that 6 floors up, there was a wing up there of kids that are going through the worst time of their life.
Exactly.
I didn't, until we were on it, until we were on that neuro floor at Children's, I didn't know that existed.
Right.
I mean, say the nurses were fantastic. They're fantastic people. And Child Life is wonderful. I always have to plug them. Child Life is they're the most amazing unsung heroes. I think should be getting paid a hell of a lot more than they are.
Agreed. They're incredible.
We love them. That was our first experience with them. My youngest daughter now, that's her goal now, is to become a Child Life specialist.
I love that.
So yeah, it's an extremely proud thing. I love to see the kids, the children, the advocates that are young, they're getting out there and speaking and sharing their voices and their stories and I love that altogether. And as a matter of fact, I'll have the opportunity soon to speak to some of the ambassadors, the young children from St. Baldrick's.
Cool.
Thomas
is one if you ever need him, but he's pretty shy. I don't know if he would actually talk to you, unfortunately.
Well, that's okay.
He's the opposite of me.
It happens sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But that's okay. It's a really cool thing to be able to talk to people. I love doing this because, like I said, everything, we have a conversation, it always spirals into something else, and we can, we can share so much on these stories that people just don't see or hear, or they don't know exist. The difficulty that we have a lot of times getting our message out there because people don't want to listen, or they're offended by what we would say.
Yeah.
I mean, the only comparison I ever had is the year prior to JC passing. We had a yard sale where we donated all the money to the National Pediatric Cancer Foundation.
Awesome.
And so we had stuff out there, and somebody had come in, and JC was there obviously and doing well at that point. And the woman had, under her breath, I heard her and I just kind of let it roll. But she said, "Oh," and I said, "Yeah, this is our inspiration. She's over here." And she said, "Oh, using the kids, huh?" Yeah, we are. And give me your money, because that was way outside the cuff. I'm not using my kids. This is not a community that we want to be a part of, but we are. We're here. We've been dealt these cards. We're doing it the right way. And this is a community, all the people that I meet, that we will go scorched earth for every single day.
Amen.
Do not care. Say what you want. Try to silence me. I'm going to keep coming because I've got a lot to say, and we've got a lot of fighting to do. So
100%. And you think about people like that and how empty their hearts and their souls must be if they can treat other humans, especially humans who are going through something so difficult like that. So it's really like, at the end of the day, you just feel bad for those people, and it's like, okay, next, I've got a purpose here.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely. And what about, the other one is, did you ever, Thomas was in treatment, take him outside of the house in public for the love of all? Did you ever take him out where people could see him and get the looks? We almost handed out Polaroids of JC. Wow. Just like, if you're going to stare because she has no hair, then why don't you just take this picture home if it makes you feel better? She was embarrassed by it when people would stare at her. She didn't like it.
Yeah.
She owned the fact she had no hair. She didn't care.
Yeah.
She said, "I guess I just don't have to brush it now."
Aw, rock star.
But yeah, that was that the looks along, because it's like, I would rather you stop and ask a question. Honestly, I would rather you say, "Hey, what's going on?" I mean, I don't know if there's a polite way to say, "Hey, is your kid sick?" But I mean, ask a question. We're all about sharing our story and sharing what's going on, because that means more people understand. So stop and ask.
Totally. And that's something I always tell my kids. I work with special needs dancers, and the really cool thing about my program, it's called Darby's Dancers. It was named in honor of Darby Jones. Have you ever heard of this program?
I have not.
Okay. Darby was an incredible little girl. She was born with leukemia in her body, and she fought for her whole life. She was just bright and bubbly. She loved to dance, and sadly, she passed away when she was 14. She was the inspiration for this program, and now we have chapters in almost all 50 states and some even abroad, and we offer dance classes for kids of all abilities. So that's something when you say, okay, just ask a question. I always tell my kids, because we do interact with the kids in my dance class, I invite them to my kids' birthday parties. They attend events with us. We're like a family. And I always say, don't stare, say hi. Or like I tell parents, like, don't say like stop staring, tell your kid go say hi. And that alone is such a simple gesture that can break down that, you know, stigma, I guess.
Yeah. No, it's
Mhm.
that goes for that with the kids asking or for adults asking. I think it's huge. I mean, it's okay. Like we're all different, right? And we have differences, and it's okay to be different. And these kids, like I said before, they own their differences, whether it's no hair, whether it's whatever, they own that.
Yeah,
And it's important for them to understand that they're different, and that's okay because we don't all
right.
want to be the same. So it's also okay to ask questions. It's also okay to inquire about what's going on instead of just being a weirdo and staring and not saying
Yeah,
anything. Like just inquire. Just be curious about what's happening. We did this thing a few weeks back where we went downtown here in Appleton, and I have a giant bear suit and I look like an idiot, and I put it on,
I love
and I
it.
I wore it downtown. I've got a big shirt on that says childhood cancer awareness on it, and we ran into a few people that were actually affected by pediatric cancer
Wow.
and had and donated to us right there, and they told us their stories. And we met a girl who was I don't know what there was something, a mental disability there. I don't know what it was, but she was the most excited person in the world to see this giant bear. We've got pictures with her hugging, and it was incredible. Like if you can share a smile with somebody by trying to share your story like that's huge. That's the difference that we want to make every single day. When we go on these social media apps and stuff and we're doing whatever, it's our goal every single day. Yeah, we want to raise money for our cause. We want to raise awareness, but it's to make somebody smile, make somebody
Exactly.
forget what you're going through that moment in time.
Yes,
That's the whole point of our care packages too, is it take their mind away from it. Forget what
absolutely.
you don't want, I mean, you're fighting it every single day, but just move past it and just have a minute where you're not worrying about everything in the world. That's the goal. I think so.
100%. And I was taking notes here because I don't want to forget to talk about this. So you mentioned St. Baldrick's
Mhm.
and jumping off of that, and also the piece of forgetting what you're going through. I met this amazing family, the Schraders, and their little girl, Mary, is just so spunky, so fun, little dancer, girly girl. And I had this vision of doing a royal ball for St. Baldrick's, which I had mentioned earlier. And we made Mary the honored guest. And we brought her in. We had over 100 people. I brought together 6 different pageant beauty queens with their crowns that came, and we did a coronation ceremony for her. We rolled out a literal red carpet. She got a crown and a sash. She got to dance. She got to play games. She got to enjoy that sense of community. And one thing that her mom said is, this was so wonderful to just be here and have a normal childhood experience, and to have everyone celebrate our daughter and to feel so special. And Mary actually was walking for the first time in a few days. Like, it brought her that much energy and joy to be in a situation like that. And I did have Spectrum One cover that, so I can send you the link if you want to share it in the show notes. But that, I think, is another important piece, is to include families as much as we can in normal society, if you will,
Mhm.
barring any immunocompromised or other situations. But when you can, include kids, share their story. Don't make it like a hush hush, oh, so and so has cancer, like we don't talk about that. No, share what they're going through, include them in everything. I also did an event at my studio where the kids in one of the dance classes, I read them a book. It's called Brave Like Me. I don't know if you've heard that one, but it's geared towards younger kids. And it goes through this little girl named Ava and her story with cancer and what that means. And so we read the book, and then the kids made cards for the kids at the MAC Fund fighting. So it's little things like that that we also need to make a difference to normalize this in society so that it's not such a quiet topic for the most part.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. And I think, you know, so cancer's not contagious, guys. Okay. It's okay
Right.
to be, it's okay to play. It's okay to be friends with them. It's okay to be close to them. It's okay to just be yourselves.
Yeah.
You don't have to, I mean, aside, like, again, with the immunocompromised or with, just being careful, you don't have to change your lifestyle around these kids. If you're friends with them, just be their friend. They're going through
Yes.
something, but they don't want to be defined by it. Right.
Exactly.
And that was something that was huge with JC's classmates. When she came back to school after the initial surgeries, they would have just huddled around her and squeezed her until her eyes popped. And they said, okay, it's going to be high fives until we get all this situation taken care of. But and all the way up through the grades now, every single year, they do something in honor of her, and they have done nothing but think about her and keep her in their thoughts. And all they wanted to do was just have their friend back in school. They didn't care about all that stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
they were interested, right? And they wanted to know that she was okay. But she came back, she had a, at a point, a mask on. She had no hair. She was skinny.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't, she wasn't able to get up and dance and go on the playground, but they didn't care. She was in the class with them learning. That's all they cared about. And we need to normalize that normal. If that makes sense, is just understand that they're going through something tough, but they just want their friends. They just want their family. They just want to be treated like everybody else.
Amen. And that's why I work with kids, man. Like, I was an elementary teacher and I teach kids at the dance studio, and they just exemplify that selfless love, that compassion, that adults get kind of jaded and we don't always have that. So kids are very inspiring in that regard. We all should be more like kids.
We should. We as adults take for granted a lot of things that, unfortunately, a lot of these children will never experience. And we take for granted day-to-day things that are difficult for them when they're going through these times. And
Yes.
it's a shame. And, one of the first things that our neurosurgeon told us at Children's was that I work on kids because of the innocence. I want to protect that innocence that they have in them. And he's a man of few words and not a lot of emotion, but we love him for that, wanting to be
Yes.
that person that is just there to fix these children and make them and give them the best opportunities possible because of that innocence, that genuine heart that we are missing so much in this world. So to work with the children every single day and be with them and see that and their smiling faces and know that they don't care about all the garbage that we muddle up as stressful things in our life. And some of the stuff is pointless and they don't care about all that. They just want to be
Right.
kids,
Exactly.
and they deserve it.
Yes. 100%.
So I think we talked about a lot. I think we covered a lot of things. It was an incredible conversation, and I'm glad that we were able to hit on a lot of topics that I think are very key for people to hear, and also for a lot of people to be able to relate to, which is another reason for this avenue and this platform, is for people to relate on a level that you might not see in other places. So in closing, if you have any other advice that you'd like to give to families, mothers, parents, anything like that, now is your chance.
I would say we all meet the same end eventually. It's not fair that our children are meeting it sooner because of the reality of childhood cancer. But rather than let that scare you, let that be your inspiration to live your life to the fullest, to be a kind human, to pursue your dreams every day, whatever that is. I mean, maybe you're touched by this story, but you're not going to go out and have a fundraiser tomorrow. Let it be your inspiration to do the things that you want to do and accomplish in life. Because what's the worst that can happen? Like, we've already been through it, you even more so than me. And yeah, just live your life to the fullest.
Yeah, No, that is perfectly said. And just understand, everybody, that no matter where you are in your day-to-day life, whether it's at the grocery store, whether it's at work, whether it's at the gym working out, somebody near you is going through the worst time of their life in that day, or having a bad day, or whatever's going on. Just be nice to people. There is
Yep.
honestly, there's no reason for all the divide in everything that we go through in life. There are a million different topics, a million different things going on right now. I know we don't all see eye to eye, but we just need to be nice to people, because you don't
Yep.
know what they're going through. So
Exactly.
that would be our closing advice for this podcast. And once again, Lori, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your story and sharing all the incredible things you've got going on. And I hope to be able to meet up sometime in the future, whether it's at our events or whether it's in DC at CureFest, which will be there again this year. But we're too close not to have come together and collaborate on something.
Agreed. I would love, love, love to go to CureFest. It's all going to depend on, the kids and the budget and everything at that time to be able to travel. But someday it is on my bucket list to get out to CureFest. And I'm really looking forward to your gold event in August.
August
I forget the
17th.
date.
Yep.
Yes. So I'm planning to attend. I'm hopefully going to bring my mom or one of my friends, maybe even my husband. He's not big on stuff like that, but I will be there.
It's an excuse to dress up. You tell them you get dressed up and,
I
right?
love that. He could care less about that, but I love that. I'm
Well,
writing down the date right now. I know you sent it to me, but
yeah, it would be incredible. The more people we get together, this year, all the funds that we receive, with the goal of $25,000, is being donated to OncoHeroes Biosciences, who rescue pediatric drugs that are put on the shelves by the FDA and pharmaceutical companies because they refuse to test those in pediatric instances. So what
wow.
OncoHeroes does is those drugs then, they will actually buy the rights to them, and then they will work on them within the pediatric instances that are out there that those drugs are proven to work for, but the pharmaceutical companies, for some reason, just don't want to pay for. So
God.
that is our goal and investment this year of $25,000 to them. So they will be there this year. Another guest speaker is Tracy Ryan from NCORE, who does incredible things on her own with her daughter Sophie. That is natural killer cells that they work on. So she'll be there as well, and a great group of people. So it's a cool event, and we'd love to have you and anybody else listening. All the details can be found on our website, battlecorncarepackages.com. So once again, thank you so much for spending the time with me, and everybody else, we will see you next week.
Thank you very much.